feels like the W, its properties, its teams this year are actually ready to catch up to the level of competition and competency that some of these players were used to in college and expected coming into the WNBA. And you can go down the line with some of the things we're going to talk about today, whether it is Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso in this Chicago Sky training camp that is highly professionalized, that is full of veterans, they're working with a new assistant coach in Courtney Paris, who it seems like is going to take their game to the next level. Tyler Marsh just completely running what people are calling a boot camp, whether it's Caitlin Clark on this revamped Indiana Fever team with Steph White as a hire, and they announced this brand new practice facility, and they basically had an entire culture shift with Amber Cox coming in, and you can kind of go down the line, whether it's the W itself, right? Every preseason game is going to be watchable, whether it's on League Pass or it's going to be nationally televised. That is a huge difference from last year, where you had, I remember somebody who I follow on Twitter, Hey, it's Allie, who streamed Angel Reese's preseason debut, and it got 2 million impressions, and it had like 200,000 live viewers. And it was just like this grainy stream from her seat at the game because her preseason debut, which was highly anticipated, was not televised. And you had that problem with some of the Fever games as well. This year, that is not going to be the case. Not only that, but I think they're doing a much better job of trying to connect these different fan bases that these players individually have, starting with, you have Caitlin Clark going back to Carver Hawkeye, going back to Iowa for the Fever's first preseason game. You have Angel Reese and Haley Van Lith going back to LSU. It was already announced that they were going to play a preseason game in LSU. Now that Haley Van Lith is also in the picture with Angel Reese, that only adds more juice to it. And the Camilla part of it is, who are they playing? They're playing the Brazilian national team. So you're bringing in the college fan base. You're bringing in her national fan base as well. And you're trying to find these synergies that I don't think, like, I know I'm newer to this, but it just feels like the league was never the best at figuring out how to do this stuff and how to tap into organic markets and instead of like trying to put all of these bells and whistles around things. So that's what makes me really excited as well. Like, it just seems like they're doing a much better. And I got to mention Sabrina Ionescu as well. The Liberty going back to Portland to Oregon State to play their game as well.
Well, and the amazing thing about that is that this is a market that's going to get a WNBA team anyway. So, like, you have this sort of proof of concept matchup that you're getting in the preseason here. And to me, the biggest difference is the WNBA has always been, as someone that's covered and followed the league for a really long time, it's always been a very reactive league. The W does not and has not had the front office resources, the communications team, just the league apparatus itself. The NBA as an entity staffs orders of magnitude more people than the W does. And, obviously there's reasons of longevity and profitability, et cetera, that, make it so. But when you look at how proactive the NBA is in advancing their product, it's because they have a marketing team that is in the double digits of people, and the WNBA simply does not. And this year, I think, they learned the lesson of what Caitlin Clark taught them, which was, you can't be behind anymore. You can't hope that the players are going to be the sole drivers of this. And it feels like the more moneyed owners who have been pushing for this type of investment, your Mark Davises in Vegas, Joe Tsai in New York, they've been at the cutting edge of trying to figure out how to do this, and have oftentimes got slapped on the wrist by the WNBA for, bending the rules a little bit to try and make it so.
Basically investing more than they were willing to invest, right? That makes them look bad, yeah.
Totally. And I think with Caitlin arriving in the league, obviously the profitability of the league goes up. The revenue number goes up just from, the gate itself and merch and that sort of thing. But now you have a TV deal that's coming in that's going to net you even more money. And I think owners finally realized what they had, and that you ride the wave. You spend money to make money to ride the wave. And we saw that in Dallas. We saw that in Atlanta and Los Angeles, two franchises that I think are very different in their approach to mediocrity, but have been mediocre all the same. Like, the dream, it hasn't been for a lack of trying, right? Like, they've tried to go
all
out and
happy
trade.
families are the same, right? Yeah.
Literally, exactly. Yeah. But, like the dream went out and like they tried to make a trade for Jordan Canada, for Alicia Gray. It didn't work. They tried to trade for the number 1 pick. They got Ryan Howard with that pick, and the pieces just didn't come together. So with the league kind of growing into what it is, Larry Gottesteiner and that ownership group very clearly saw, we have to do something to catch up and cash in on this. And so you fire Tanisha Wright, you go get Carl Smesko, you go get Brittany Griner and Brianna Jones. In Los Angeles, it has been, for a lack of trying. They've just straight up been completely apathetic to the franchise, so much so that Magic Johnson had to come out and say, yeah, guys, sorry, like I'll care more this year. And, you go out, you get rid of Kurt Miller, you bring in Lynn Roberts, you bring in Kelsey Plum, which actually, in hindsight, looks like a really smart trade getting off that number 2 pick, given how slim the pickings became at that guard spot. But, they have indicated that they want to try. The Chicago Sky, same deal. Saw what they had in Angel Reese and Camila Cardoso. Now, even though it's slightly delayed, it sounds like there's still a practice facility on the way. You bring in Tyler Marsh, like you're doing all of the things. And I think last season, we can call it a dry run. It might be last year, I would argue, was one of the most anticipated WNBA seasons of all time. This to me is one of the most exciting WNBA seasons of all time, just in terms of potential storylines, talent coming into the league, and also the parity. I think there are legitimately 3-4 teams that could contend for a title here, and everyone's chasing a super team in New York. Like, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. And you even think about a team like Dallas as well. They get Paige Beckers with the number 1 pick, which supercharges their sort of attempt at turning things around as well. They go in, they hire Kurt Miller. They hire Chris Koklanis as a new coach. They have a new arena on the way. They have a new practice facility on the way. It feels like they are a year behind to a degree, but because of the number 1 pick. But at the same time, now they're going to be able to use Paige, her institutional wisdom coming out of UConn, and also just the popularity that she brings to Dallas as well. And that's another thing that feels different to me about this season, where, like, I think if we're being honest, a lot of last year was really, it was about Caitlin Clark, and then it started to trickle down to other things when you talk about mainstream popularity, right? And this year, it feels like, obviously, Caitlin is still the biggest draw in the game. But at the same time, there are a lot more mainstream-ish fandoms percolating in the W this season. And I think Paige is a huge part of that. I think that her popularity has risen a lot over the course of the last year, and then peaking with the draft and winning the title and all of that. I don't think that could have gone any better for her or for the WNBA. And she just feels like one of those pockets. And I have I wanted to cite this actually. So I got this from Victory Live. It's it's like this ticket company. They analyze the secondary ticket market, and overall the league's average secondary ticket market is up 43%. But the interesting thing to me is Dallas, as an away team, had an 89% increase in their away ticket prices. And obviously, like, that to me is kind of like the Paige effect, right? Yeah. They also have the most expensive secondary ticket at home as well, right? And then I guess the Connecticut Sun, interestingly, are second. So I had to follow up on that. I was like, wait, what's going on there? But it turns out, well, it comes from the 2 games that they have against the Fever, but it also comes from the fact that, where's Connecticut? Right? Yeah. Like, it's like all these UConn fans want to go see Paige as well. So that ticket price is actually really, really expensive as well. And then the Fever, naturally, they have by far the most expensive away ticket in any market. I think it's an average of like around $282. Chicago is second. But all of, like, the point is, like, all of these are sort of like growing properties, and you add on the fact that you have already, like, the Aces and the Liberty feels like they have had, like, a good solid fan base for a long time. It just seems like this season it's not going to be all reliant on, like, one team and one narrative to power things. It just feels like there's a lot more people who are there's always been great storylines, but it feels like there's a lot more people who are invested in all these storylines as well.
Well, and I think when you consider the fact that a lot of the current stars of the league, not named Caitlin Clark, had their own ingrained fan bases, right? Like Asia Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, Angel Reese, I think those three, and Breanna Stewart to a lesser extent, but I think those three, I think you argue, had breaking containment fandom, right? Like they weren't just people known in the women's basketball world, but they were known by people either in the greater basketball world or just the general cultural lexicon. I think Caitlin Clark, to use the rising tide lifts all boats analogy, I do think that she did accomplish that. I think she legitimately served as an entry point to people to come into the leagues. And what ended up happening was they found Asia, they found Sabrina, they found Camila Cardoso or Rickea Jackson, they found Jewel Lloyd, they found De'Erica Hamby, and all of a sudden you're a fan of all of these players, and the league as a whole is starting to grow. Now you're at a point where instead of one or two recognizable faces in the league, it feels like there's 6 or 7. And to me, that's a difference between prior years. And it's also a difference on the part of how the WNBA markets, because they're a very shiny new entity in terms of who they market and how. Once you're in the league in recent years has pushed you decidedly less because they're waiting to capitalize on the next year's number 1 pick out of a college with a large fan base. And the last 4 years, it's felt like that's changed to marketing who's already in, because they bring uniquely large fan bases that have indeed followed them into the pro game, really off the strength of their social media presences. So everyone already carries a certain level of celebrity. Then you add in Caitlin, who brings everyone's floor even higher. And you're right. We have so many different teams and so many different players that are worth watching this year.